I have no problem saying if I don't know something. I'm always constantly wanting to learn. I think that's an important quality to have as a person. Just always remain humble, confident in what you know, but just open ears and listen and ready to learn. I hope to be this way until the day I die.
Welcome to Verify in Field, the Millwork Podcast. Your host, Jacob Edmond, CEO of Ductworks, will be interviewing experts in the industry to bring you insights and knowledge about the latest trends, techniques, and challenges in millwork. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and join us as we explore the world of millwork. Here's Jacob.
Welcome back, everybody, to Verify in Field. Today we have Jillian Klinar, and she's a senior product specialist at Energi and a good friend of mine. We get to hang out at lots of conferences throughout the year. She's always helping me meet people and have fun. And today we're going to talk about her unique journey in the industry. She comes from I think a really interesting background, and how she got into the Carpenters Union and now where she's at working in software in our field. So thanks for joining today, Jillian.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
To get started, would you give a little bit of your background? And, I know you come from commercial real estate and made a career pivot, decided to join the Carpenters Union, and worked your way up through the industry that way. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Hey, yeah, absolutely. I have a very unique career journey, I would say. A lot of people are surprised when I tell them my path, but I started off, I went to Penn State and went and got my degree in commercial real estate and business, and was on a commercial real estate trajectory, worked in the corporate world, default services, selling to banks and companies, purchasing up properties, and then was married and had a family and everything, and then went through some personal things with my now ex, and it was a tumultuous time in my life. It was very hard to keep up with the demands of raising children by myself. It was a really bad situation that we were put through, and it was dangerous, and I had to get out of it. And I lost a best friend. I lost some grandparents, and it was just a really tough part of my life. And, I had spent 15 years in the real estate industry and thought that was going to be my future. And then all of a sudden my world came down and I was like, what am I going to do now? And I had the opportunity to meet some people that introduced me into the world of trades. And I was able and fortunate enough to go to the Plumbers Union, the IBEW, a lot of the different trades that we have here in Pittsburgh. When I walked into the Carpenters Union, I was like, found my home. And it was a great opportunity for me because I could learn something new. I was familiar with going into buildings and oftentimes awestruck by the architecture and all the beautiful woodwork, especially here in Pittsburgh with the history that we have. And it was really cool to think of that I could learn to build that and be a part of the new construction and everything that's new going on in Pittsburgh. It also provided me an opportunity to go to work and not think about anything else and come home and take care of my kids and go through that tough part of our lives together. It was kind of happenstance, but it definitely bit me when I walked in and I knew that's where I needed to be.
That's awesome. So, because I think, because one of the reasons I wanted to have you on here, obviously, is it's important, I think, in our industry to elevate women and minority voices in our industry because it is a very white male dominated industry. I'll say that as a white male. But also I think it a lot of times can get a bad rap, and so I think it's so interesting to hear from somebody who's not a white male, your perspective, how welcoming it was and how you've built a successful second career ultimately. And how you shared just like when you walked in the Carpenters Union, you felt like this was home. What about it made you feel that way, do you think?
Well, the Carpenters Union was so welcoming, very encouraging of getting women on board, so much as that's the Brotherhood, and they have a division called the Sisters in the Brotherhood, the SIBs, where they really encourage women to get involved. I had the opportunity to go to a convention at the International Brotherhood Training Center that's in Vegas. There was women carpenters from every age, from 18 to retired at 70, that were the trailblazers from the United States and Canada. About 500 women coming together and talking about their experiences, things that were tough, especially like in the field. I must say, as a millwork, I chose to go into the millwork division of the Carpenters Union, and I was treated like a sister. I was treated like their mother, their cousin, their sister. I actually treated better than I was in corporate America, honestly. So it was a welcoming and refreshing surprise, because I do think that it gets a bad rap. I don't know that that's true for all trades. I can't speak on that. And I do think that we are progressive in not all aspects, but in that aspect where, we're the labor force, we have a tough time filling positions in our industry.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever somebody walks through the door willing to work and willing to put that effort in and that hard work, they weren't looking at, what you looked like. They just saw your integrity of a person and that work ethic, and they were happy to teach you what they learned. They knew they were going to retire at some point, and they wanted to carry on that tradition of craftsmanship, of quality, integrity in business. And so it was really welcoming to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I think that, a lot of times when these topics are brought up about, a lot of times there's some offense taken by those in the industry of like, well, it's not our fault that it is male dominated. And I think that, while yes, it's not entirely your fault, the results are what matter, and I think that it is a shame that we aren't able to benefit from having more diversity a lot of times in our industry, and it takes a conscious effort to change that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that doesn't necessarily mean that it's that the people in it have done something wrong to make it that way, but it doesn't change the fact of what the results are. And so I think it's important to talk about it and to learn and say, hey, how do we get more diversity in it? Because I think there's so many people like yourself that may be shying away from it because they see it from the outside looking in, and they're like, oh, well, it's not going to be welcoming to me because there's not a lot of people who look like me. And I don't think that's the case. It is a very welcoming industry. And I think just like you said, there's probably plenty of women in commercial real estate, and your experience was actually, more harsh,
Worse.
right? Worse.
Yeah.
So I think just talking about it, hopefully it helps. But so your experience, you went into a shop and you took within the Carpenters Union, you went and worked for a millwork shop. What was that like going back, and starting fresh? I mean, you from college, right? You were in commercial real estate and business and kind of a corporate environment. Was this obviously probably a shock for those people who knew you? Hey, what, she's getting up and going, working in Sawdust every day. Like, but was that exhilarating? Was it like, what was that like?
Well, I tend to have a positive approach to life, take things with a grain of salt, but definitely had a lot of comments like, the heck are you doing here? Why are you here?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm here to work, And so I think teaching young women, young professionals, young people to just go in and put your head down and work. If you sit there and rely or rest on the excuse of, oh, they're going to look at me differently because I'm a woman. I took it the other way. I'm not getting the benefit of the doubt, so I'm going to work hard and improve myself. So even though I was in my early 30s, I think coming from, dressing in suits and heels, and I strapped on my steel toes and threw on my t-shirt and grabbed 2 barrels of garbage and took them out and ready to work. Quickly gained respect from people in the shop because they saw that I wasn't there just trying to, be the token girl because they need to fill a quota. And just really just showing my energy when I show up every day to work. And that just garnished respect from the people on the shop floor. And it became a really good learning experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there anything that surprised you, like that was different from your expectation? Because obviously you probably, this is all new, right? Obviously exciting, but do you feel like you had misconceptions or kind of preconceived ideas that were shattered or affirmed once you kind of got in there?
Well, I will say that I didn't even know how to change a drill bit when I started. So I had no idea. I honestly didn't know, in your head, I knew the carpenters, I knew like framing, I knew like the guys in heavy highway, building, we have a lot of bridges and roads and stuff. So I was familiar with that type of work. I had no idea how huge this millwork industry was. Everything, I did not know what went into making a cabinet. Like you take a dovetail drawer box, and part of the class is learning how to cut like with a dovetail saw. Like you're not using a machine for it or anything like that, and just getting an understanding of the world that has erupted into our industry now it was mind blowing. I didn't have preconceived notions, so I didn't know anything, and it was just the more I learn and the more shops I see, and it's fascinating to me.
So do you think that was a benefit coming in with not knowing anything and just completely open minded? Hey, I'm learning, everything's new, and
Mhm.
I'm learning as I go.
Yeah, that was, I think, beneficial. I don't know why more women don't get into this industry, especially if they're interested in working with their hands. You're working in a climate controlled facility. You're going to the same place to work every day. You're dealing with, there's such an art to it as well. Like, yes, you are sometimes slapping together boxes, but, when you get to experience the book matching of the veneers and all the things that go into finishing and the cool stuff that we do with solid surface, I just think that it's a really good place for a woman to be able to work.
Yeah. So, digging into that a little bit more, because I think there probably is kind of an idea of millwork. And when people say, oh yeah, I work in a shop. And also, even if you see somebody like maybe somebody in the carpenters union, they probably come home dirty and they work together. You do get dirty, but there's probably a perception of, hey, this is just physical labor.
Right.
And not about how technical and how many different types of tasks and jobs there are that is very technical about it, right? Like there is a lot of
Mhm.
problem solving and creativity and there's a lot of technical details to it.
Absolutely.
What was your experience in that? Like, do you find, because I do think that there's also a lot of traits that women more commonly naturally have than men that would
Mhm.
apply, and they would do a lot of these jobs much better than a lot of the men, right? There's a lot of organization, there's a lot of planning and strategic, communicating with people, and I feel like it is a lot more technical than probably comes across in people's mind from the
Yeah.
outside looking in, right?
Mhm. And I think that it's important that we use, all of our perspectives that we have, whether it's man or woman or whatever, you know, part of the world you come from. Being open to hearing those different perspectives really strengthens an organization because, you have somebody that's, done it the same way over and over again. This is the way we've done it for 20 years, 25 years, 40 years. You hear that all the time. And I think that does a disservice to the industry when you're not open minded to hearing like a new perspective. Like, well, what about this?
Yeah.
What if we do it this way? And so by involving people with different walks of lives, you're able to get that richness of information passed along and discussion. And then as far as technology, it's come so far in just emphasis on safety. It's not, nobody should have bad knees at 40 because they're lifting, you know, too much work, too much wood all the time or whatever. And there's a lot of technology that's in the shops that, it's not just, you're not wrapping up a 4x8 across your back and carrying it around the shop the whole day. So, yeah, a lot of things to be gained from that.
Do you find, so we talked a lot about obviously your experience being a woman coming into this industry, but even just the angle of being somebody kind of mid-career coming in green, right, is a whole
Mm-hmm.
different experience, I imagine, right? From that perspective, for anybody who is early 30s trying to say, hey, maybe I need to change careers, maybe I want to try something different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, regardless of man or woman or minority or what, like that is its own challenge coming into this new industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a lot of benefits though, like you mentioned, like having an open mind and, hey, I don't know what's right or wrong. I don't know the way things have been done. I'm just coming in with a fresh mind, and maybe I do have ideas, or even like safety, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a lot of ego in people that have been in this industry of like, oh, I know how to do this, versus you are
Right.
probably thinking like, hey, I don't want to hurt my back. I'm going to try to think about this strategically. And I know you worked at Giffen for a period, and they had Alex,
Yep.
and safety was a huge, like they've innovated
He's,
a lot there, right? So
yeah,
I'm sure you
absolutely.
benefited from that. But from the
Mhm.
perspective of somebody coming in kind of mid-career, do you have any advice or kind of thoughts for somebody else that might be interested in that?
For sure. I think it's amazing. I look back and what I learned in real estate, which is not, they're two different industries, but
Mhm.
having that business mind is not common in our millwork industry. A lot of us came up, they just started as craftsmen and it was just worked and are really good at the craft, but never really thought of it as much as on the business side of it.
Mhm.
So the way I approached, I was, eventually became an estimator and approaching, um, going after different markets and the education, honestly, that Energy provided and how to attack different markets and um, really go after jobs that you're going to be most profitable with, grading your customers. That was really in line with how I tackled marketing and when I went after real estate sales. So there was a lot of skills that would transfer into the industry that you don't really think about.
Mhm.
And that actually ended up helping me a lot.
Yeah.
So I would encourage people to, when you have those diverse skill sets, they can be applied across multiple industries.
Yeah.
If you can learn the trade, and you can, it's all at the end of the day, we're in a business, right? And we need to make money. So it doesn't matter how pretty the product is, how well it's constructed. We need to make sure that we're profitable in order to keep the health of this industry so we're able to keep growing it and keep strong. So
Mhm.
having that business mindset is important, I think, for our industry.
Well, it seems like you came into this very much without ego, without, like willing to do the work, willing to learn. And
Mhm.
obviously you worked your way up, you became an estimator, and now you're at Energy, but you got your hands dirty, you learned and said, hey, I'm going to learn everything you guys teach me before I try to tell you guys what I think we should do to some extent. Does that
Absolutely.
sound accurate?
Absolutely. I have no problem saying if I don't know something.
Yeah.
I'm always constantly wanting to learn. I think that's an important quality to have as a person. Just always remain humble, confident in what you know, but just open ears and listen and ready to learn. I hope to be this way until the day I die. I always have constantly more things to learn, and having that kind of mind will help accelerate you really in any industry.
Yeah. Do you find that, obviously, you had a period of your life that was tumultuous and that sparked a change in career path and all these things. Do you find that your personal lived experiences have carried through in your career going forward, whether that's in sensitivity to like people around you and to understanding like other people have their own lived experiences, to what's important to you today and how you interact with people? Like, how does that translate into your career today, if at all?
Yeah, well, I know perseverance is really important to me. It's really easy to think about everything, what goes wrong and what's bad. So just carrying with me the positives and the hope and gratitude and humility and determination. Um, I think those are all things that I've learned through going through crap. And that's what, and everybody has a story. Everybody, the more I talk and the more I tell people this story, they tell me their story and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, so we all have things that we've been through and they're at different levels. And, but having, being able to listen is really important and then understanding that, a lot of times, a lot of guys that I've met, and I'll say guys in particular, but there's some women too, but will have very hardened exterior. But then when you actually get to talk to them, you're like, okay, you're a normal person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
And
think
a lot of people let ego get in the way. It's hard for people to swallow that and say, hey, I don't know.
yeah.
Or hey, to swallow that and say, hey, I don't know. That you're comfortable. That unknown is really it's hard, but the more you can step out of your comfort zone, the more you grow, and the more you appreciate other people that are doing the same thing.
Yeah. And I will say, from my perspective, you're very good at disarming people and like breaking down those barriers, right? Like, and I think with me and with people at conferences, I think that's what translates to you being a great
Yeah.
product specialist at Energy, and like it's all about relationships. And I think that's something I'm learning later in my career is how important relationships are in everything that we do. But I think through, that is something that you are very naturally, I would say, but maybe it's something you've developed over time at good at
I've
is
always been a
charming
pretty good
people.
talker.
Yes. Well, and I think that, yeah, you make people feel very comfortable very quickly and realize like, hey, you're very genuine and you're very transparent and you're very like real. And I think that allows other people to be that way in return. And so, which is again why I think I wanted to have you on the podcast. I think it's very, it's easy to come on here and just talk about the technical stuff, which I think is important. But at the end of the day, our industry is filled with people and made up of people that have stories and have depth. And so it's a big part of what I want to share in this podcast in general.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's important to be have integrity and be real. It's when talking to somebody, I always end up the conversation ends up talking about energy at some point. It just always ends up happening. But I am passionate about it, and we all want to do the best that we can, right? So like I think that is true. I like to believe that's true, that we want to be the best people that we can be. We want to be, successful. We want to take care of our families. We want to take care of our communities around us. We want to do right by our employees. And as employees, you typically want to do a good job. So if you can come together on that foundation and, figure out like, okay, how can we be better? And just have that open communication. I think that's important.
Yeah. So talking about energy, right? That is your job now.
Yes.
You built all this experience. You worked in the shop. You've gone through the carbon machinery. You've worked as an estimator. Now, tell us about your role at Energi.
Well, I'm a senior product specialist, part of the sales team. I'm so fortunate because I get to go around and talk to mill workers, tour shops, get an understanding of the ins and outs of everybody's their businesses. One thing that I love about this industry is that we are all very unique with the custom nature of what we do. We have very niche. We're a niche industry with very niche market segments. Whether it's high end commercial, if you're doing a bunch of casework, if you're doing residential work, if you're doing architectural stairs, it's really cool to see and learn what goes on, the ins and outs of those industries, and then how we can raise that bar up and strengthen us so that we are making money at the end of the day. We're infamous to spend a ton of money on the shop floor and have these great machines. Nobody bats an eye about buying a machine and, relearning, how the process on the shop floor is going to go, learning how you're going to re-engineer products to go through this new machine, learning how to estimate it differently because you now have a new machine. But for some reason in the office side with software, a lot of times it's like this, how are we going to possibly learn this? And it's like, no, you're learning new things all the time to try to make yourself better. Try to put that into the office side where you can actually realize some money, some profits from using that tool the right way.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So obviously there's Energi invests a ton in education. I think you get to, that something that excites you? What excites you most about your work at Energi?
Definitely the education. That's our competitive advantage. That is something that we are industry leader in my opinion. We take everything from the tactical, very specific, click here, do this, kind of education to very strategic. What is a contribution margin? What is your target market? And the strategic level. So the combination of that, I think, is very exciting, as well as offering a cool technology to that younger group coming up. That we're not just these dusty mill workers. We have cool toys to play with, not only in the shop, but in the office too. There's cool things that you can do. People that are like data nerds, there's lots of, there's a lot of things to do there. If you're, you want to be able to be excellent estimator, having those kind of education and those learning paths that people are able to take. We offer certifications within our LMS or learning management system so that, if you are younger and you're like, okay, I maybe want to be a PM one day, there's a track that you can take and learn. And so having a place for people to go and getting youth excited and new people coming into the industry excited. It was me entering into this industry. There was nowhere you could go and say, hey, let me go take these classes to learn this stuff. AWI does a great job with their education. We partner with them, and they're a great industry perspective to have. But there was just lacking this like sole place of like a one-stop shop for like all of the education. So hopefully we can provide that for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. And I think obviously you guys also branch outside of just U.S. and North America now in joinery in Australia and UK and stuff like that. So in your work now with Energi, do you find how you're leveraging your diverse background, your experience in real estate and business as well as on the shop floor? Like, how do you find yourself leveraging that unique background in your day-to-day work with Energi now?
Well, I think the one benefit that I gained in real estate was growing really thick skin. You get rejected a lot. People don't want to talk to you. You learn how to approach people that you don't know and just get, again, out of your comfort zone and going up and talking to people. So taking that experience and using that coupled with, me knowing what 11/16 inch particle board is, so having those two combinations is helpful. I will say a lot of times when I start talking to people, they're like, what could she possibly know? I get that a lot. But then typically after, 5 or 10 minutes, they're like, okay, maybe she knows what she's talking about. So,
yeah.
But I think that's a natural thing, it's human nature to kind of be skeptical a little bit. I just encourage people to be open-minded.
Yeah. So you find even still today, there's certain preconceived ideas just when people meet you that you're not looking like a dusty mill worker, so you must not know the trade, but little do they know.
Oh yeah. I've had people specifically say that they don't want to work with me without even talking to me.
Really?
Yeah, it definitely exists. I don't let it bother me. That to me, it's like their loss. But yeah, it definitely exists.
For those that are listening, that are like, yeah, I agree. I would love to have more diversity in my company and more diversity in this industry. Do you think there's anything that people in this industry can do actively to have more diversity?
I think getting involved. I know I just, for instance, was a judge for Skills USA. AWFS did the Skills USA in California.
Yeah.
And becoming active in your local areas and to the high schools, getting that information out there. I didn't know this existed. So it wasn't like I chose to go to college instead of do this. Like I just didn't even know this was an option. So I think just getting that word out there, even if you talk to 100 people, you might get 1 or 2 ears, but that's 1 or 2 that didn't hear it before. Wherever I would start in your local community, go to your local high schools. I talk to domestic violence shelters, like, women that have gone through and need to rebuild. It's a great opportunity for them. And they're some of the toughest people you'll meet, and they're going to put in the work. So just thinking outside the box and just getting that information out to new people, I think is important. Everybody's struggling with material costs and labor costs and hard to find labor. And I think we need to go after as many avenues as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as much as we, as much as talent is a struggle in recruiting and getting younger people in this industry, I think that the broader we can cast that net to any type of, avenue people might be coming from, background, I think is that much more important. And I think making it being that much more intentional about showing that your company, your place is a welcoming environment and that you're open to any type of person, any type of experience level. And I think you're proof that somebody that, if they were hiring for a journeyman on the shop floor and they saw your resume, they probably would have been like, okay, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Right.
But realizing that there are assets that come from different backgrounds than just from 18, they were in the shop floor. And I think opening your eyes to that, us consciously in the industry as leaders, and exploring other people's backgrounds and what can they bring to the table that's unique that we can leverage to make a great estimator, to make a great senior product specialist. I think that there's a lot of value that can be had, as long as the person is willing to put in the work and eager to learn.
Absolutely. And investing in your current workforce, I think, is important. I was lucky with at Giffen, where Dustin, saw that I had potential, so it was like, here, let's learn this, and it was very good about teaching me and learn, I got to learn so much. And so that investment in your employees, it can go a long way.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of times, a lot of entrepreneurs or owners in particular kind of, it's like if somebody doesn't have the same work ethic I do, you as an entrepreneur, like I'm not going to invest in them. And I think that does a huge disservice because one, not everybody is an entrepreneur. Not everybody's going to be in it. And if everybody was you, they would be competing with you and starting another business. And so, but that shouldn't stop you from investing in your people. And I think that there's a ton of untapped potential there. I had Chris Ornament on last episode or 2 episodes ago. And he's from Pitt State. He's a young guy in this industry, and he's in a PhD program right now. He's going to be mad at me for saying this, but he's in a PhD program about adult learning. But just the idea that of being a mentor and finding somebody that informally, like I, have so many people that they don't even know they were mentors to me, but they chose to be like, hey, I'm going to teach you something. And that's has so much value to getting people interested in coming up in this industry. And I think too often we do have young people that start and then they just work with grouchy old people that don't want to teach them. And they're like, well, I don't want to be around this. Like, why would I want to work for a guy that's just telling me how terrible I do everything? And so I think taking a moment as somebody that has experience in this industry, that is later career, and being like, hey, what am I doing to inspire people to stick around when we do hire young people? And that, hey, I think, and this goes for everything. I think a lot of people that say, oh, I put in my time, they need to put in theirs. Yes, but don't scare them off before they get a chance to do it.
Right. And the industry is changing. So the time that you put in looks different now.
Yeah.
It just does. There's technology that is just booming. So you just didn't have that before. So that meant something different. And it's going to look something different, in 20 years from now. So being able to stay on the cutting edge and with an open mind, ready to grow. Otherwise, you're going to fall by the wayside. If you don't continue to try to improve, you're going to end up being taken under, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's 2 questions I like to ask every guest before wrapping up. And so I'm curious to get your perspective on this. The first one being, over the next 5 to 10 years, what do you see changing in our industry? In that time?
So I see, technology is huge. I think technology with AI, I was recently at the Wood Tech Summit. Shout out to all Moxie and the Woodworking Network. And it was really interesting to see how the future technology is going to impact our industry, and the use of AI and the machinery and the shop floor, use of AI and just even ERP or engineering softwares. It's going to go really quickly, I think, in my opinion. And I really encourage companies, no matter your size. Some people are like, oh, we're too small for that or things like that. Really try to step out of your comfort zone and become innovative, because I think otherwise there's going to be like a couple companies that try to buy out other ones. And I just don't think that's the best way to go. I think that one of the beauties of our industry is how regional we are. And there's a value to both, but I just would hate to see some of the legacy craftsmen, the ones that have been around for 80 years go by the wayside because they're scared of technology.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. On the flip side of that, what do you see staying the same? What do you see not changing?
Oh, well, I hope the craftsmanship doesn't change. That's part of the thing that I love about this industry is how we really care about what our products look like. Sometimes to our detriment, and we overthink it and over-engineer and overdo all those things. But at the end of the day, we build beautiful things things that are very helpful to our communities. And I'm just hoping that we can maintain that craftsmanship of part of our industry and we don't become just too sterile.
Yeah. No, I think so. Yeah, there's definitely like at the end of the day, what we make is still what we make. And I think that there's
I'm a sucker for some beautiful old woodwork. And I just would like to see us continue to do that. Yeah.
awesome. No, that's something I was talking with, I forget who it was recently, but I think that it's funny because I think over the last however many decades, there's been kind of a shift away from the trades, right? And away from physical labor towards focusing on, the more office type work, right? Technical skills, like computer based, technology based, right? Which is, and I think it's almost like with the shift to AI and with, it's kind of going the other way. I was listening to, there's a contractor, a home builder by the name of Nick Schiffer. And he did a podcast interview with Mike Rowe of Dirty Jobs. And they were talking about, he was making the case of like, okay, well now there's so many things you have to do in running a business and in construction. Like if there's something that you can offload, your accounting, your scheduling something, and you can arbitrage that to a virtual assistant or whatever, like why not? Why wouldn't you? We do that with so many other things. But it's interesting that the pendulum is kind of shifting to where now we're valuing so much more the trades, the physical labor, because that's harder to come by, but we still need that. You can't outsource somebody installing cabinets in your building. Like that has to be done the person on site. And so we're now with AI and with technology advancing so much, like, oh, we can offload what used to be the technical skills that we needed highly skilled people for to software. And we really value more the physical labor, the dirty work to some extent. So I think there is a shift
human element to it.
Yeah.
Like the human element.
Yes.
I think that where people, and especially as it gets more and more AI sterile type, we're going to appreciate the natural art and beauty and crave that as humans, I think.
Yeah.
I will at least.
Well, I think the companies that continue to have that are going to be more and more rare and more differentiated. That's going to be their differentiator and value adds.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
It's a balance, you have to, it's a balance.
Yeah.
You can't let that, be your downfall either.
Yeah. Well, if people want to find out more, reach out to you, or find out more about Energi, what's the best way they can do that?
You can email me or give me a call. My call, actually, I don't have a problem putting my number out there. It's 724-292-0054, or my email address is Jillian Klinar, Jillian, JILLIAN.KLINAR@energi.com.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure we link those in the show notes so it's easy for everybody to get a hold of you.
Awesome.
If you aren't familiar with Energi, go check out their website and everything that Jillian's talked about. They do a ton of great content and work in our industry. Jillian, thank you so much for joining and sharing your story, and I hope to have you on again in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jillian.
All right, bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Do you want to stay up to date about industry insights, new content, and our community of millworkers? Go to ductworksmw.com to sign up for our newsletter. I'll see you in the next episode of Verified in Field.